I just want to be real with y'all for a minute. I feel like there are so many people in their 20s right now who are wasting some of the best years of their lives without even realizing it. So in this video, I want to go through 21 habits that make you a loser in your 20s. And before anyone gets offended, I'm not saying if you do one of these things, you're automatically a loser. I've struggled with some of these myself, and I'll be honest about that throughout this video. The point isn't to judge anybody, it's to help you recognize the habits that become your lifestyle. Because the truth is, your 20s matter. The habits you build right now are probably going to determine what your 30s and 40s are going to look like as well. So if you can cut out some of these bad habits now, you're going to put yourself in a much better position later on in life. So with that being said, let's get into it. One thing that has become way too normal for people our age is being on your phone every chance you get. The average screen time is honestly kind of insane these days. And if you use the screen time feature on your phone, there's a good chance you'll be shocked by how many hours disappear every single week. I'm not saying phones are evil, we all use them, but when you're constantly checking notifications, scrolling social media, or opening apps just because, it's becoming a terrible habit. Over time, it'll wreck your mental health. What's even worse though is that other people around you are going to see you glued to your screen. They'll see you physically there, but they're not going to see you mentally present. And so whether it's your friends, your family, or someone you're trying to date, constantly looking at your phone sends the message that you're not interested in them. And that's just not the kind of person I personally want to become, and you probably shouldn't either. And speaking of things that slowly make your life worse over time, let's talk about being overweight. Now, I'm definitely not some health expert, and I'm not gonna pretend at all that I know what it's like because I've been pretty skinny my whole life, but I think there's a big difference between carrying a little extra weight and being overweight that's limiting your life. If you're out of breath walking up a flight of stairs, can't get on the floor to play with your kids, or it's just really standing in the way of your life, that's a serious problem. You only get one body, so take care of it. Getting in shape doesn't just help you live longer either. It'll help you be more disciplined, help you think clearly, give you more confidence. And again, I don't think the goal in life should be skinny. I think it should be to be healthy. And so, especially as a man, I think being physically fit and capable is really, really important. Another thing that goes hand in hand with discipline, though, is keeping your word. I feel like this has become a major problem with people our age. Everyone makes plans, but the second something quote-unquote better comes up, they cancel. Man, learn to stick to your word. If you make a plan, go through with that plan. After a while, nobody believes what they're gonna say anymore, and I think if you're a man with integrity, your word should mean something. If you commit to something, follow through. It's such a simple thing, but it's honestly so rare, and it makes no sense why it is. Be someone whose actions match their words, because trust is incredibly hard to earn, but really easy to lose. But even if your word means something, the next thing you need to stop immediately is chasing women. I think this is something that so many guys struggle with in their 20s, and it just doesn't work. You're not gonna find a great girlfriend or future wife by constantly chasing attention, begging for validation, or making your entire life revolve around women. If anything, it usually attracts the wrong kind of person. It comes across as desperate, and desperation is never attractive. Instead of making women your focus and your purpose, make them a bonus. Focus on your career, your faith, your friends, your health, and becoming someone you're actually proud of. Ironically, that's when relationships actually tend to happen naturally. From there, let's talk about a habit that's honestly just all downsides: smoking. Whether it's cigarettes, weed, I've never really understood the appeal. It's expensive, it takes up your time, and it's terrible for your body. You're literally paying money to damage your health, and I know some people that use it to deal with stress, but there are so many better ways to handle it than becoming dependent on something that's hurting you. So my advice is simple, just stay away from it. And while smoking hurts your body, complaining slowly poisons your mindset. Now, I don't think complaining is as destructive as some of the other things on this list, but man, some of the most exhausting people I've ever been around, some of the most miserable people I've ever been around are people who just constantly complain about everything. Every inconvenience becomes a crisis. If you're a grown man constantly whining about things you can't control, get a grip. Life is hard for everybody. Spend less time complaining and more time actually doing something to improve your situation. Another habit that will also hold you back is overspending. One of the most important skills you can develop in your 20s is learning how to manage your money. And trust me, nobody's born knowing how to budget or invest. It takes time to learn, but if every paycheck disappears the second it hits your account, you're never gonna have freedom to do things you actually want in your life. You're always gonna be stressed about money and always worrying about living paycheck to paycheck and wondering why you can't get ahead. Learning to spend less than you make isn't boring. It's what gives you options later on. Now, speaking of really basic things you need to get under control, let's talk about your hygiene. I know this sounds obvious, but smelling bad is a real problem, and nobody wants to be around someone who has bad hygiene or who smells terrible. It honestly blows my mind how many people skip the basics. And again, if you're struggling with mental health, that's one thing, and stuff like that, I understand that. But if not, man, take a shower, wear clean clothes, brush your teeth, and put on deodorant. It really isn't that difficult. I know that sounds harsh, but if you're not taking care of yourself, yourself, that's something you need to fix today. It's one of the easiest habits to improve, and people notice it way more than you think. Stop stinking, really. But anyways, the next one is gambling. And I'll be honest with you, because I don't want to sit here and pretend I'm perfect. I've gambled before, and it's something I kind of still do. It's something I'm not perfect in, and I need to stop doing probably. But here's where it becomes a serious problem. If you're gambling money you can't afford to lose, or you physically can't stop, that's not entertainment anymore, it's an addiction. And at that point, you need to get help. Even if you only do it for fun, it may still not be the best recommendation I'd make to you. I don't know why anybody would really ever gamble. It doesn't really make too much sense. You're usually just gonna lose in the long run, so it just doesn't make sense to me. And while we're talking about letting things control your life, another huge mistake is caring too much about what other people think. I know so many guys my age that make decisions based on someone else's opinion instead of doing what they actually want. They don't start that YouTube channel, they don't ask out that girl, they don't apply for a certain job, or they don't chase a stupid goal or dream that they might never achieve, but they just want to chase it. Why not? At some point, you've got to take control of your own life. Nobody's going to live it for you, and people are always going to have an opinion. So stop giving them the steering wheel of your life and drive the car yourself. That leads perfectly into vaping, because it's another habit that just doesn't make too much sense to me. It's expensive, it's incredibly addictive, and you're putting chemicals into your body every single day. I know people say it's better than smoking, but better doesn't mean good. Nicotine still will control you, and maybe this is just my opinion, but I've never really looked at a guy hitting a vape and thought, man, that guy's really cool, and he's super hip and sick, you know? I've never said that, ever. I just see someone who's becoming dependent on something they don't actually need. Don't let a little metal device control your wallet, your health, and your day, and your emotions. It makes no sense. After cutting out those addictions, though, the next thing you've got to get rid of is being lazy. And honestly, I don't really understand why so many people are okay with it. Your 20s are the time to build your life. This is where you can develop skills, work towards something in your career, get in shape, become the person you want to be. If all you do is sit around playing video games for 12 hours a day and avoiding responsibility, don't be surprised when you're still in the same exact spot 5 years from now. There's nothing wrong with relaxing or playing games once in a while, but if that's all that's in your life, you're wasting some of the most important years you'll ever have. That being said, being lazy kind of goes hand in hand with lying as well, because both habits slowly destroy your character. It's pretty simple. If you lie all the time, people will stop trusting you. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about when I mean, when you give someone your word, follow through with it. Your friends won't believe you, your employer won't rely on you, your future girlfriend or wife is always going to question if you're telling the truth if you're always lying. Trust is one of the hardest things to earn, and once again, one of the easiest things to lose, like I said earlier. Sometimes telling the truth is uncomfortable, but it's always better than trying to cover up a lie. Being known as someone who's honest, even when it's difficult, is really, really important. That being said, another thing I need to talk to you about is being over-emotional. Before anyone twists my words, I'm not saying men can't cry or be sad or show emotion. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm talking about is letting your emotions control your actions. Some of the worst decisions people make happen in the heat of anger, jealousy, or lust. A guy who can't control his anger ends up hurting the people around him or hurting his wife. A guy who lets lust control him ends up cheating or making the decisions he regrets. Feeling emotions is completely normal, don't get me wrong. Letting them ruin or run your life isn't. Real maturity is learning how to feel your emotions but still making your own decisions. Moving on to our next thing, which is having no goals. And I'm not saying you have to have some perfectly written out SMART goal like we did in middle school and high school, which made no sense, or some 5-year plan completely mapped out of your entire life. Most 21-year-olds don't have everything figured out, and you don't need to either. But you do need a reason on getting up in the morning, doing what you do. Because if you don't have that, you really don't have anything you're working towards. And when you don't have anything you're working towards, it's really easy to do the other things on this list, like getting devices and just being lazy and lying. I don't know, if your life has no direction, it's hard to shoot for a target, and an easy target to shoot for is to have a goal. But once you have direction, the next thing you don't want to do is tear other people down. And talking bad about people is one of the fastest ways to lose people's trust. If someone hears you constantly gossiping about everyone else, they're naturally going to assume what you're saying about other people is what you're also saying about them, and they're just going to lose trust in you. And again, that's just not the kind of reputation you're ever going to want. Got a problem with somebody? Have the maturity to go up to them directly and talk to them, have a conversation, and address it. There's no reason to create extra drama or distrust. That being said, moving forward, let's talk about doom scrolling. Earlier, I mentioned always being on your phone around other people, but doom scrolling is a completely different problem. It's laying in bed telling yourself you'll scroll for 5 minutes and then somehow it's been an hour and your day is gone. You don't learn anything, you don't create anything, you usually don't even feel better afterwards. If I'm being honest, this This is something I struggle with currently too, so I'm not going to pretend like I've mastered this, but that's exactly why I know how damaging it can be as well. These are hours that add up fast, and they're hours you're never going to get back. And just imagine what you could have done with that time instead. It's just like wasted money, but even worse, I would say, because you can never get time back. You can get money back. That being said, I talked about goals earlier, and if you actually want to start moving towards those goals, then the next step is to take accountability for your life. And this one is huge because if everything is always someone else's fault, you're never going to make any progress. If you fail a class, it's the professor. You're broke, it's the economy. If you're out of shape, you have bad genetics. While those things can make life harder and they can have an impact, constantly blaming others gives the power away from yourself. The second you start asking yourself, what could I have at least done better? It isn't about that you're going to fix everything in the moment, but it's about the fact that you're taking accountability and you're actually moving forward and you're actually making progress and you actually might become better. Pushing the blame on other things and other people just makes life mundane and worse. That being said, once you start taking your life seriously, stop making everything a joke. And I'm not trying to be super harsh out of nowhere, but it's true. I love joking around. I mess around with my friends all the time, and I think that's great. Like, having a great sense of humor is a fun, great thing. But I also feel like a lot of people my age, just mask the impact of life behind jokes. All of a sudden, everything becomes a joke. Every little thing, even serious things, it's much easier to make a joke than to be serious. And so I just feel like everybody my age has been doing that. I think if you stop doing that, you're going to start realizing how serious life can be, and you're going to start progressing a lot faster. That being said, I think one of the most important habits to build is gratitude. Being ungrateful is one of the quickest ways to make yourself miserable because no matter what you have, it'll never feel like enough. You get a new opportunity to immediately complain that it wasn't the perfect one. Someone does something nice for you, and instead of appreciating it, you focus on what they didn't do. That's just not a good way to live. Life is going to be hard sometimes, and it's okay to acknowledge that, but don't let complaining become your default response. At the same time, when something goes right, actually take a second to appreciate it. Wake up, be thankful for what you have instead of obsessing over what you don't. I really believe gratitude changes your perspective, and a perspective that's better leads to a better life. And finally, I think we have to address something that's been a massive issue in our modern day and age, which is just being a hater. Feels like so many people spend their entire day criticizing everybody else. Somebody starts a business, they hate. Somebody posts a video, they hate. Someone gets in shape, they hate. Somebody finds the perfect one that they're gonna marry, they hate. Somebody finds success, they hate. What's the point? Let's let people live their lives. Not everyone's gonna make choices we would personally make ourselves, and that's okay. That's what makes life fun. Let people live their lives. At the end of the day, constant negativity doesn't make your life any better. It just makes you someone people don't enjoy being around. If you got such high levels of energy, why don't you put it into improving yourself instead of tearing everyone else down? Celebrate other people's wins, focus on your own goals, and become the kind of person who brings positive energy into every room instead of sucking it out. That's a much better way to live. But now, before you click away, I think you'll really like this next video. In it, I break down how to actually get a girlfriend in 2026. Not by chasing women or trying to impress everybody, but by becoming the kind of man a great woman actually wants to be with. If that sounds interesting, click this video here on your screen. I'll see you over there.